Our next speaker is a brother priest from the Pauline family. He has a doctorate in social communication and education and currently the Dean of St. Paul's Seminary. He is also a professor in St. Paul University, Manila, Loyola School of Theology, and Divine Word School of Theology. Father Norman will speak to us on the topic, True Encounters in Digital Social Network Connections. Friends, let us welcome Father Norman Pena, Society of St. Paul.
So good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to everyone. Later, I will be just sharing my screen if I will be allowed to. So I'm here to speak about the face unmasking. It's nice to follow the speech of and the talk actually of Bishop Malit because it gives us a para bang yung how really communication should be approached in terms of being a Christian, in terms of what we are actually on about. So for now, this is my talk for today. Okay, the true encounters in digital social network connections. Now, the true encounters is something that the Pope has always mentioned. The Pope has encouraged us. Yes, digital connections are actually very good, but it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. True should actually always lead us to true encounters. And I think that's what Bishop Maralit has also highlighted when he said that we need to be critical of that because the true encounters happen really not only at the instrumental side, the instrumental part, but likewise it happens in the encounters that we have beyond the digital and social network connections. So as you would see here, I have a bit of representations of connections at once. The one that you see are little dots. They are dots actually representing something, of course. They are actually, this one is actually the website of the Vatican. It's actually the website of the Vatican. And what you could see, there are notes, there are connections, different colors. This is a way of other presenting the website of the Vatican, but they are actually connected. I guess what I will be sharing with you now is not just following from the religion side. I will be speaking to you now on how to merge it with what is, sabi nating science, because that's yun din sa siguro that the one that I have studied. Not only that, practiced in my mission class on social communications. When I was working before the CDCP culture, I had actually the experience also, and I had the opportunity to share it to some of the people on its magnificence, the connections that we have, and how it can help people. So as you will see here, even the connections are there. As I said, this is a representation, an actual representation of the Vatican website. The red dots, of course, represent the links. In a web, of course, there are many, many links. Yung mga naka-underline, yan yung mga red. Yung mga, those naman that are gray, they are actually the words in a particular website. And then the blue, they are actually, the blue ones are the ones in bold in a website. So it's all this mixed up, but if it gives you a considerable number of networks. It happens too in our digital network use, digital connections. Each of us has roles, each of us different ages, each of us expresses something. If this is a different website, for example, if this is the website of Facebook, those red could be the icon of likes and all that. But as you see, it's all connected, and that's what communication is. And that's where we get as well through encounters. That's where we will get through encounters. And here, so this is actually the outline of my presentation in this. First, yung face unmasked. I was looking again at the description of what is our theme for today. It's actually unmasking. It's like he said, the mask covers an identity. The mask, so we have to actually get rid of the masks. It's unmask it so as to show our true identity. There are two sides of an identity, of course. It's the I and the other. So in terms of the face unmasking, what I will try to uncover is actually the negative and the positive side of it, of the unmasking. And in that, we could say that in that unmasking, that we always have to relate in terms of encounters. So it's face unmasking is about relating. Me showing my identity, me knowing the other identity. Digital connectivity is about, we will discuss that something not only about its religious sense to us, but the strength and distance and what it means in terms of human connections. So a bit of science yan. I will be mixing science that the bishop has inked on the religious. Dito naman a bit of science in terms of communication. And then afterwards will come, so after 1, 2, magiging 3, parang triangle siya. What will be formed are true encounters. Out of the religious, the I and the other, the relating. Out of the science of digital connections, out of the connection, we will try to discover true encounters through that. What are they? What are they? And how can it be achieved? How can it be achieved? Alberione, our founder, used to say really that even the Pope Paul VI before, when he was meeting our founder, he was saying that Alberione, he was saying, was actually, behold this man, ever humble, ever intent at, sabi niya, not only at observing, but the word that Pope Paul VI used was scrutinizing the signs of the times. Scrutinizing the signs of the times, which means he is ever alert not only to observe that the sky is blue, that the trees are green. That's just appreciation, aesthetics. But he is on about true encounters. He is on about true encounters, and that is what our true encounter should be. So it's about the end of digital connectivity, of course, our true encounters, social media plus, which means we will go beyond. We hope to go beyond in my little speech and sharing today, go beyond social media in terms of this. And then what will happen then is a rediscovery. So yon, relating, reaffirmation, and rediscovery. And that is what we will try now to uncover. That is what we will try to uncover. Um, and it is for us very, very, I think, something that is true for us. So the first one is the Pope Francis, unmasking digital connectivity. And I define that as digital connectivity is a product. It's a product of revolution, but it's not a product, sorry. It's not a product of revolution, but an evolution of interaction, both in meaning and being and doing. So digital connectivity is, I made a mistake here, is not a product of revolution, but an evolution. Connectivity in terms of social media refers to interactions. It has our connectivity, our network with each other existed even before social media. Even before social media, the technology that we have now, we already have connectivity. The digital, yes, it's something that is new, but the connectivity side, doon din kasi, that is where actually the true encounter will actually happen too. Not only in the digital are the tools. The connectivity is the relationship. Connectivity is the relationship. So we should not mix actually the two. It's like social media. We often focus on the media and less on the social. But the connectivity is actually about the social. It's not necessarily about the media. And then, okay, now I'll go here. This is what the Pope said in his letter. Unless we open ourselves to digital encounter, we remain mere spectators. For all the technical innovations that enable us to feel immersed in a larger and more immediate reality. Siguro here in digital communication, this is like the prism, the conversation. This has always been used, actually, this picture. You might have seen this too. But what it means is that all our digital connectivity is actually about a conversation, me relating to the other. Then the Pope continues, any instrument proves useful and valuable only to the extent that it motivates us to go and see things that otherwise we would not know about. So talaga namang everything in the instruments, everything, every new invention is actually allows us to see things, sabi natin, that otherwise we would not know about. For me, my question here before, okay, it's about seeing, therefore it's about the eyes. This is actually, the Italian here is sentire, vedere. Sentire is to feel it. Therefore, it's not necessarily to see it with the eyes, actually, but to feel. Yun eh, to have an experience of, and that is actually connectivity. It's not necessarily what you see in the internet as something good, what this brings, nice pictures, okay? It's not this only, but something that is actually, that you feel it. Si Maya Angelou has used to say, people will forget what you say. People will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that is very, very important for us too, in terms of our social use, in terms of the true encounters. We go beyond what we see. We go beyond what we hear. True encounters is actually, we actually touch the heart in the feelings that it creates for us. And as missionaries, that is actually the role. The religious side that the bishop has mentioned very, very nicely is actually to bring us to the heart. Not to remain only at the instruments, these are just instruments, but to go to the heart. And that's where Jesus speaks. That's how Jesus communicated. To post on internet news that would not be available elsewhere, to allow for encounters that are otherwise would never happen. Ayun. That the digital connectivity through encounters actually happens when we see things also in a different light. The one I showed you before about the dots. Who would ever think that that would represent the Vatican website? But that's seeing it in a different way. That's seeing it as connections. We should always see our words and our deeds, even the things that we post, as creating connections, not distorting the connection. Yun. Fake news as distortion of connections. Yan, ha? Fake news are distortion of connections. Those who actually perpetuate yung fake news are distorters. Para silang yung mga destroyers of connectivity, destroyer of connection that otherwise we would actually have the true authentic connections. Okay. And then this is one of my favorites. I always say this in whatever speech I give because it's actually important. The degree with which you master your tools, you can invest the world with your meaning. The degree with which you are mastered by your tools, the shape of your tools determines your own self-image. What does it mean? Using this is actually the degree with which I master this. I know how to use my cell phone. I can invest my meaning to the world. The degree with which now we use Zoom, we can actually bring meaning to the world. Okay, so very, very nice. Pero there's another side. The degree with which you are mastered by your tools in terms of connectivity, yung bang this becomes your only method of communication really. Basta you can lock up in your room, ito na lang ako. I would not connect with any other person. Basta ito lang akin. I play games or whatever. Therefore, even my own identity I lose. This becomes as well my mask. Ito na yung masks that covers my face, covers my identity. Kasi I always use this without I would not be a person anymore. Therefore, this becomes my masks. The thing is, the masks are there to help us to, it has something that is positive. The masks, like if this is a mask, it is true. One side is that unmasking means like to do away all the barriers. But the other side of that one is actually to help these barriers communicate your sincere meaning. Cell phones can be a barrier too, but it could help us communicate meaning. When I say unmasking, it's actually parang you will remove its cover beyond the technical. You will remove it in the cover and feel the heart of it. What is its real good use for religion? Yun sa akin eh. And that is actually unmasking that is positive. That is unmasking that is positive. Yung masking naman that I use it, I put it as a mask or I use it to communicate, that is actually something that is investing the world with my meaning. That's mentioned by Ivan Illich, Tools for Conviviality. He wrote this also only in 1972 pa. Wala pa tayong, we do not even have internet as extensive. Facebook, wala pa. Pero it's about all the tools kasi, and this is a tool. This one is just to show you the connectivity. It has a deeper meaning, but I would not go into that. So it's about our identity becomes centralized. Our identity becomes actually decentralized, and our identity becoming distributed. It has actually a different meaning, pero I would not go into that already. Social media, history naman, this is actually the history of social media. It's interesting in terms of this, in terms of the social media, on how on how this relates. This is what I'm saying, that connectivity existed even before 2004, 2003 when Facebook was invented, even YouTube. Connectivity, our connectivity, ito na yung digital, like from 2000 siguro onwards, beginning of digital. Okay, that's the beginning of digital. But the social connectivity, it's actually existed, even the BC. And we have to be aware of it, okay? We should never say that connectivity only happens when there was the digital, nor was Facebook, social media. Very wrong. Even the social scientists would affirm. It's not true. Even the psychologists would affirm. Actually, there was a psychologist already in Canada who affirmed that. It existed in time. BC pa nga yan. In time. Before Christ pa. Before the common era. We already have connectivity. What digital method has done, and which the Pope has said, is that they made it faster, they made it more immediate, and they made it actually more felt. Like you're speaking. Yung time, immediate, tsaka yung feeling that you have. Ito, that is actually the history. This is connectivity. Science-wise, this is connectivity. Jesus might be in the time of the sea, common era na. So there, he has a time also there to put ourselves here. And then here, there are many different. Some of these programs have already died. Some of the programs have already died, but some have continued. Remember, 2010. This is 2010. Even it actually continues. But this is connectivity. What all I'm saying is social media did not start the connectivity. Okay, it might have started the digital, but connectivity existed before that. And when we say true encounters, masking the true encounters, unmasking, it actually means you have to have an understanding of how connectivity is before, how people relate before, what makes them sad, what makes them help each other, what makes them actually learn. That's part of it too. Okay, next. In the alphabet community, of course, this is actually the product of it already. The oral society, alphabet, and the virtual. We are now in the virtual society, which means our connections, our connectivity, our socialization is actually not as aggregative, redundant, traditional, or solid. In the virtual world, of course, it becomes more fluid. Alphabet, of course, you can analyze it because the texts are there. Okay, but in the virtual, it's unstable, more exchanges. This is now what the Pope means when he said about the instruments which allows us actually to propose our meaning. It's also a proposal of a world which is actually fluid. How do you communicate a mission there? How would you find your identity there? Would you just drown in it? Or can we draw meaning out of it? Will you be drawn? Will you drown pala? Sorry. Will you drown in it? Or can you draw meaning out of it? And I think that's mixing religion and social media actually is something that helps you discover the effects and the goodness actually of both, the effect and goodness of both. Okay, this is now media of today. This is media for today. The effect of COVID, what is it? Of course, it has made, the effect of COVID is that TikTok became number one, actually, almost has overtaken YouTube in terms of presentation and video presentations. Zoom became number two. We know why. Uh, this is a product. I am talking to you through Zoom. You are on Facebook. Okay, but this is a product. Facebook is number three, of course. Before, actually, it's Gmail number one, or even Google. Google is not. But see who here in terms of this. And this is actually the download applications. You see, and this is the media of today. This is connectivity now. You can see what is connectivity now in terms of TikTok. Something that is fast, something that is entertaining, something that is clickable. Okay, our connectivity today is actually clickable. You can just scan through it, select what you like, and then ano pa ang TikTok? It's imitative and entertaining. Yan, that is actually our social ano ngayon. So we could say our role, of course, is what value do we get out of it? What value does it teach us? Yun, part of our scrutiny is actually on the values. Part of our scrutiny is on the values. Afterwards, of course, this I have always believed. That's why I have written it. Communication can be actually defined in three nodes: information, communication, and social relation. This is the history. Later on, you will see a wheel: information, communication, and social relationships. Regretfully, our current communication focus much on building likes and thumbs up. This is very true. On shared information communication, but less on enhancing social relationships. This is the connectivity that the Pope in his letter wanted, actually. That encounters social relations that are meaningful. That speaks more to the heart, the feeling. I mentioned that. The effect is much emphasis placed on media rather than on the encouraging the social, on encounters, connectivity, on not remaining only on connectivity, as the Pope said, but those connectivity should lead us to true encounters. The end of digital connectivity is true encounters. That is something that we are now trying to unmask. True encounters in digital connectivity measures not the information nor the communication, but reliable relationships, one that lasts, from which trust and faith on each of the eyes around us. The others' eyes around us are the others. Yung others around us. Me, I am an eye. Each of you who are watching now is actually another eye. And my students, normally the students that I share with, and then the students with whom I learn from as well, actually, are eyes, other eyes, wherein we discover. And that is actually, that is what's nice about digital social network connections. And in terms of our own religious belief, again, as I've said, connecting it makes it more meaningful. It's not it's not right that you say, okay, this is very good, okay, this is news, use it. Hindi, it doesn't end there. It's not just end, but as the bishop has said, which was very good, with all these modern things, we need actually to examine and scrutinize if they bring us value, if they help us grow in our faith, number one. Authentic human beings, hindi tayo robots that are controlled by this. We should be the one to control this, not this controlling us. Next, digital social network connections. Now, what does it mean? More than a conglomerate analysis of big data, it seeks to find the meaning of such conglomeration from which significance is born. And as I've always said, this is where philosophy and theology comes in. Meaning and significance. What is the difference between meaning and significance? This gives us meaning kasi direct. Parang Google translation. It gives you at once meaning, but it does not become significance unless you make it a part of you. It doesn't become significant unless you make it a part of you. I will remember again our founder who said, it is actually not enough. It is not enough that people read or that yun. It should actually have an effect in our lives. The things that we publish, a Society of St. Paul, Daughters of St. Paul, and the Pauline family, should actually have an effect in our lives. Pero what our father really actually advocated, and which is a bit mysterious, kasi we will never know the books we publish oftentimes, whether it has an effect. Here is where religion will come in. We only have to trust in God that what we publish, it can help people actually change. It can help people change. Next, all of us are witnesses. Another one, chapter, the second, opportunities and hidden dangers on the web. All of us, according to Pope Francis in his letter, are witnesses, are to be witnesses of the truth, to go to see and to share. This is the proclamation is the share. To see is to marvel. Yung mysterious. To go is on mission. To see God's marvels. Tapos the other one is, of course, to share. The other one is, of course, to share. The other one is to share. And that is very, very true here. Then the Pope says, the internet with its countless social media expression can increase capacity for reporting and sharing. Very good. Ibig sabihin for proclamation. And with many more eyes on the world and a constant flood of images and testimonies, digital technology gives us the possibility of first-hand information information that often quite useful, especially in the medical field, pati yung mga emergency cases. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. And we see this in the development before, yung mga in Egypt, in Syria before, about the texting and all that, the revolution that has started. Pero this is actually the ano, as I was telling you, we could fall always into the trap that actually this one is the one that causes the change. This one actually, these are actually instruments. People who are caused, which caused the change is actually the significance that people get from this. What is its value? The value that it communicates to me. What value does the person on the other side communicate to me? That is what actually makes us change. That is the experience of Saint Paul before. For him, the value is only like the teaching that he received. Okay. But how did it become for him in his conversion? Everything that he has became significant when he met the Lord. Kasi nga, he found significance in all that he has already. What is this significance? The wisdom that Paul has. He found it actually in Christ. So when the bishop said about discernment kanina, in that for the truth, and the truth that should be discerned, in the truth that should be discerned, it's actually something for us. This is, I believe, the experience of Paul. He found the truth, he discerned the truth, and that truth is actually found in, according to the bishop, too, in Christ, his experience of Christ. Ganda, no? Kaya even here, our experience of Christ, our experience of belief, our experience of our relationship with Christ. Yan. That is how this will actually be meaningful. It is actually a powerful tool which demands that all of us be responsible as users and consumers. Later on, later on we will actually see it too. Potentially, we can all become witnesses to events that otherwise would be overlooked by the traditional media. Offer a contribution to society and highlight more stories, inclusive positive voices. Thanks to the internet, we have the opportunity to report what we see. True, place before us, very true, and to doesn't remain in us, we are actually asked to share it. We are actually asked to share it. And this is what is nice about me discussing about it in a webinar yesterday in my class on mission and communication. They were asking many, many questions. Pero when then I reflected in all this, many people try to seek for something anyway. Then what I came up with in my review, we should not actually look mission. We should actually allow mission will find us. It's everywhere around us. The connectivity, the meaning and significance is actually all around us. The meaning that we seek is across. Siguro, what is difficult is that it doesn't show itself to us. We remain on the surface. We remain on the externals, on this one only. If you remain only on this, and remain just on this, not the meaning it communicates to you. Therefore, wala rin. It cannot actually do anything good to you. That mission is actually not effective. Okay, now I will continue. Next, through encounters in digital social network, traditional media, the medium is the message. In digital communication now, the medium is really who we are, our paradigms and perceptions of interaction. So more than this cell phone, actually, if my cell phone can speak, it will always say, thank you very much. You are always showing me to the screen. Anyway, ito digital communication, the most important digital method is actually not this, but the persons themselves. These are instruments. The greatest instrument of communication is not this, but it's actually the human person. So even though I do not have a cell phone, it doesn't mean I cannot communicate the gospel. You should not wait for this before you actually act as a good Christian because you cannot contribute anything. That is very, 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 very wrong. Remember, connectivity. Actually, like I said before, even without this, does it mean that you cannot connect with how you smile to people, how you appreciate what their color of dress is, how how you appreciate the hair, and how you appreciate the dress, or how you appreciate their artworks. That is actually already giving meaning, and that is connectivity. That is true encounters, the appreciations that we see, which undergo modification so as to adapt to the new medium. Here are all actually connections. These are elements of religious identity by one sociologist. There is integration, influence, membership, and connection, as you have see here, the connection. And these are all connections. Each of us are like dots in terms of connectivity. Each of us form a community. Each of us actually are connected to other communities, and our communities are either strong, and the distance of our connectivity is actually can be long. This is like social network analysis already. I'm making it simpler, pero because that I think is what we need today. Analyzing our connections. So it's not only having more and more connections, but analyzing them. What is its value? Okay, and here it's its value. Social network of connectivity and links based existing correlations. Parang you analyze it. I hope I'm not getting too technical. It just means that your connections, your network with other people can be represented by this. Can you see the dots and actually even the lines? They are actually valid. It means it's valid. Attributions of correlations are strength and distance, which are positive, negative, or zero. So if the strength is positive, if your relationship with the other is positive, it becomes like a thick line like this, or else a double line. What does it mean? If in a comment, if in a post you comment, then he comments, therefore the relationship becomes ano it's like that you become customers. We were taught before when I was doing management for our bookshop management before. Then the professor in Australia was saying to us, okay, when does a customer become a customer? Then we also, when he buys something, and the professor said, it is actually wrong. The customer can only become a customer if he buys 2 times, 3 times, and more. Yun lang. And when does our connection become strong in terms of management principle? When actually you reply, she replies. So it becomes thicker. The line becomes thicker. Meron naman, our connections are like just this. Isa lang. Okay, this man might be just a like. You have never sent a word. Okay, so the connection, we could say here, the strength is actually a bit negative. Whereas, pagka strong, it's actually a bit positive. Thicker lines. That is the strength, okay? The distance, for example, is like this. The distance is greater than this distance, which means pagka distance that they are actually near and far. Near and far, in distance between two nodes. And they are, the strength, for example, are represented by this, as I've said, represented by the edges. These are the edges, the green ones. The nodes are actually the dots. Okay, the dots. So, our social networks, yan, if there is something here that you could actually remember, I learned this also, so I'm sharing it to you, are the edges and the nodes. Remembering our social networks, for example, if we would put it, even our comments in a network, how strong and how positive it is, just see actually yung edges and nodes and what it is created. What is created, the vertices and the dots. You see there? These are actually different ones. This one actually, maybe she responded twice or once. Okay, this one just likes. And actually, even here, for example, the red ones in our, maybe these are not friends. The blue ones are friends. Yan, yung mga ganyan eh. The big ones are actually relatives. Can you see now how relationships can be? It depends. So as I'm saying, true encounters is created not only by just clicking, by connectivity. If you click, there is already connectivity. Friends na yan. But what are true encounters? When there is actually, if the edges, the lines actually become thicker and thicker. The lines become thicker and thicker. Mamaya si Shwa, Mamaya magsasalita about journalists on how, for example, reading his articles, for example, people reading his articles, for sure, their edges, the strength of the connection to his thoughts to the others become stronger. In our mission too, the same. Actually, even in your families, try to see your strength, relationships in your family, the strength. Is it thicker or is it like dots for now? The distance, is it far or is it strong? I think that is something nice actually to remember in families in terms of true encounters. Of course, the thicker it is, the more true encounters it becomes. The more true encounters it becomes, and the social network actually happens even more. So yan yung talaga dito, happens even more. So anyway, the next one is actually about, okay, this one is just about Jesus connection. These are the characteristics of Catholic schools, okay, gospel witness. But you see, again, they are connected by different dots. The descriptions, which could very much represent our own relationship with God. For example, this is our family, this is our friends, this is how we do it. It's all about true encounters, of course, as the bishop has said, is our connection to Jesus experience. The truth that we have actually should always be based on what Jesus said, on how Jesus actually also would have liked it. Okay, this is just structured identity. Of course, this one is like the normal one. This masasabi natin, this one is the old one, traditional, while this one is actually the new one, the non-structured, participant-based, and siguro lang dito, like here, our reactions, our membership becomes like participatory lang, synchronized, unstable, fluid, interaction. We become like virtual interaction instead of the long interactions. All this is just like personal ones in terms of like as I've told you, interactions and feelings. My personal vision and mission should be not far away from the school because if my personal beliefs are not in line with the schools, therefore there is non-connection. Connection is alignment, non-connection, I will be in chaotic mood. Very, very true, diba? If you are not connected, you will be in a chaotic mood. I will influence chaos. It's happening now. If I don't align what I believe in what the school wants to stand for, therefore, things will never be the same. We are supposed to align our personal beliefs or make sure it's aligned with the vision of the school. Uh, this is feelings, but this is actually very significant. Your alignment in your families, what is it? Have you aligned it? Or even, ito yung maganda, I always encourage people, even sa I encounter, yung bang, have you made a vision and mission for your family? Have you made a vision and mission for your family? Or parang talagang it's just father, mother, sige, ako lang yung tatay, ako lang yung nanay, nothing more. But there is no vision to achieve or to work for. These are just the encounters that happens. It's a world of faith. Catholics, of course, are the violet ones. The green ones are the Muslims. The blue ones are actually the Protestants. The Buddhists, ito, yellow. And then the other religions. Okay. Ayan, true encounters. And all this uses actually digital connectivity. All of them now. All of them have their own different version through encounters. Communication, the instruments it employs are integral part of each of us. By nature, each of us is a communicator. Each person is a communicator. Inherent in each of us is actually the need always to communicate. We cannot not but communicate because we are communicative. We are actually made to communicate. We are social. That is Charles Darwin principles. We are only made like any other species. In 1872, of course, Charles Darwin, the theory of species, he said, all living species share in the same two S's. Number one, the need to survive and the need to socialize. Therefore, in our need, in all of those actually, in each of those, survive and socialization, communication plays actually a big part. And this is why I do not wonder why our founder chose as an apostolate communication, because he knew it's the center of everything. Everything around you now here in Silang, where I am, the trees, how they move. It communicates something that the air is there. The electric fan here in front of me, how does it move? It communicates something. The air is there, therefore you will not. Yeah, even really, it's communication everywhere, everywhere. It's just a different. Either the communication is instrumental or either the communication is actually material. Both of them are unique. Yun nga, everything around us is communication. And for us, each of us as Paulines, the idea is, as the founder said, as long as people communicate on earth, you will have something to do, and which is very true, because we will never really not communicate. Even not speaking is actually communication. Even not speaking, even silence is actually communication. Okay, the true encounters. Ito na, this is the last. I hope I'm not taking much time. Anyway, Sister Pinky, you should just give me a hand sign. True encounters in digital. Modern mission, learning, and social relationships have found a great tool in digital connectivity. Very, very true. This, again, this one has helped now. In learning and social relationship, this one is a big help. This one is a big help, but it's a tool, okay? Remember, we can still communicate even without this, but it helps actually in the true encounters. What does it entail? Okay, we again use the words of the Pope. Ang sabi niya, dito muna, every tool has its own value. And that great communicator who was Saint Paul of Tarsus would have certainly made use of email and social messaging where he would share God's faith, hope, and love. Yan. In the letter of the Pope, he mentioned that concretely, every tool has a value. Each of these have value. Paul would use this, sabi ng Pope. But for what? For what? For texting what? For playing games? Maybe, sometimes. But Paul would use this mainly to preach God's faith, hope, and all of love. Okay, now, number 1. What does it have also in number 1? And what can we learn from it? What can we learn from it? In number 1, here is what it says. I cannot see any picture here, so I could not call anyone to read for me. Okay, so I will read it myself. It's like I am communicating to myself now. Okay, I hope you are still listening, or I hope I am not yet disconnected from the internet. Because I cannot see any movement. Anyway, I will continue. We do not communicate merely with words, but with our eyes, the tone of our voice, and our gestures. Very true. And we are the instruments of communication. We think of how much empty rhetoric abounds in our time, fake news, in all areas of public life, in business, as well as politics. The good news of the gospel spread throughout the world as a result of person-to-person, heart-to-heart encounters. Ayan, si Arlene is still okay. Thank you, Arlene. I know at least I am still on. My internet is still on. Thank you. The good news of the gospel is a result of person-to-person, heart-to-heart encounters. Very true. With men and women who accepted the invitation to come and see. And we're struck by surplus of humanity that shone through the gaze of speech and gestures of those who actually bore witness. Ayan, Sister Anna too. Thank you. And Sister Menen. Thank you po. We need actually to communicate, at least heart to heart. Come and see. Here in Come and See, I used to remember when I was in Rome, we were in a chapter. There's one priest, he was assigned before in England, Ireland. And then he made a comment. Sabi niya, in Ireland and England, we have that program for come and see. Sabi niya. And he was very happy. We have. And many actually people come. Many people come. The problem is they do not see. They just come. They do not see. And that seeing there, what is the seeing that they miss? The witness of communities. The community witness is not seen. The people, even now, we can see people are too much busy with their own tools that other people cannot see already our witness in fraternity, our witness in the family. We can work and work in the church. We can attend every mass. But when we go home in our families, can our children see the effect of our going to Mass? Can our children or our parents see that we have gone to Mass or that we have served in church? That is actually communication. That is part of true encounters. True encounters happens not only with the tools or in the places you go to worship. True encounters happens in the heart, like the Ten Commandments. Stones were broken, but because I will now speak to peoples not with stone but in their hearts, not with a stone but with their hearts. Such a magnificent, actually, no, such a magnificent profession of how God actually communicates, how God communicates. And we're struck by the surplus of humanity that's shown to the gaze, the speech gestures of those who bore witness to Christ. Sabihin ko lang ngayon, yung bang, even as we celebrate, if I could connect it also our celebration today of the World Day of Communications to our 500 years anniversary. And this one, I keep on reflecting to other people I see now. The Philippines is 82% Catholic, or maybe a little higher. Before I left in as for Australia in 1989, it was actually 92%. Now it's 82%. Okay, very good. Only Catholic Church in Asia. And how in terms of our history, what did we learn? Okay, from history in terms of faith, ang dami rin. And what is left of the how do we express our faith now? Okay, we express it to mainly if you asked what is Catholicism for you, when I asked my senior high school students before, what is Catholicism for you? And then they mentioned to me, it's actually the church, our rosaries, our novenas, the saints, of course, they're important, the saints, Christmas and Lent. Christmas and Lent. And it's they're all true and very good for young people to recognize that those are. Then as I reflect now, in terms of the 82% Catholics, it's very good too. But then one time when I was doing some research on the internet, I come across in terms of corruption index. Corruption index in Asia, I came across corruption index in Asia. And what did I see? Corruption index in Asia, the Philippines is actually number 6. Just and China is only after us. China is only after us. We are number 6. Number 1 is Indonesia. Number 1 is Indonesia. I forgot yung number 2. I should have flashed here din yun. Pero what that says, and then sabi doon, how much percent is corruption in the Philippines? 86%. And it made me wonder. We are the only Catholic church in Asia. 82% Catholics, corruption index of 86%. What does it say of our religious belief? What does it say of our religious belief? Kung ako as priest, people will tell me, Father, di ba, 82% yan, 86% ito. What does this say of your religious country? You as a country, after 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines, what does it say? And then someone said, Father, di ba, siguro, after hearing you and I see expression of religious faith natin, nakalagay dyan, novenas, pagsisimba, yan, pagnonobina, pagpipiesta, pagmimisa. Father, siguro, sabi sa akin ng student, siguro, Father, our religious faith talaga has only been external. That's why ang ano rin ng ating corruption index ang taas. That we have not actually, and then afterwards I realized in reality, and if you would look at figures, we have not really translated our Catholic faith in 500 years to something that could help. Hindi naman could help. That what really matters in our country, siguro ganon. Yung value and the soul of a country. Andun ba yung true encounters? True encounters of our faith. How do we actually represent it? How can we explain the figures? How can we explain the figures? Yung Myanmar actually yung number, yung last sa may corruption index. Pero after na yun, Viet only behind us. Pero yun lang, just ano lang yun, I just throw that in terms of digital use. Okay, tayo may digital use. Kayong number 1 user tayo ng SMS, ng Messenger, ganun din. TikTok actual in Asia, yung masasabi natin, among the highest users tayo. What does it say of our encounters? Are they really true encounters in terms of our religious belief? Does our religious belief really help us to develop our country in terms of values? Ano? Ano? Or is our faith really external only after 500 years? Siguro ito, this is what I told you before. Information, communication, social relation. This is, I think, is magaling tayo, I believe. Ito, what I believe, okay. What I only believe. Ano ko lang to, opinion ko lang. We are very, very good at information and communication. We have the latest. This is actually the history of communication, the confirmation wheel. Pero ang mahinap tayo, I think, is in social relation on the heart. Parang external in terms of the values. If I would look at the corruption index, parang ang kulang sa atin talaga yung how we have really related through encounters, through communications. How do we use it? We just use this to communicate. But do we communicate a significance that is felt? Siguro, yan lang naman yun. Siguro yan. And ito, yung a text attains its significance only when it is read. Sabi ng Jesuit priest na si Walter Ong, 1988. Which means, for me, the reality actually is, true encounter attains significance only when it is communicated in life. Not only in the externals. Not only in the externals. And that, I believe, is what the Pope was saying. Actually, encounter people, be significant. Express significant, narrate stories, yung message niya last year. It's actually about stories. Narrate it. That's important. So siguro ito lang yung sa akin. Ito lang, you can just, I will not discuss it anymore, pero we could just look at it. Through encounters in digital connections, it's about dual nature of life. It redefines friendship and relationships from the like being and the other as actually doing. From the like as being and the others as doing. Thank you very much. So yan, digital communication is good. How do you define good? Social network offers connectivity. But is connectivity the last word? How should one define digital connection in terms of being and doing? Yan, sabi sa akin, 5 minutes na lang daw. And I actually, tapos na to eh. Ito na lang. Ito, this is my end. Digital social network connectivity plays a distinct role in events that happens in our world. And to each of our networks, we call self. In addition, of course, to the diffusion of mass information regarding these events, the primary role of social media, of our digital connectivity, is promoting a compass of relational interactions surrounding the events, which promotes true encounters. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, Father, for this enlightening and inspiring talk. While waiting for the questions to come in, we have a quote here from Sister Anna. She said that it's really inherent in each one for us, no, human beings, the need to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
True enough, because it's in our DNA,
Mm-hmm.
right?
The true sister, true. Para tayong mga cells, cells. Cells that needs to grow actually, but we grow through the cell of the other two.
Yeah.
Parang
Online relationship and in-person relationship are not dichotomous. One complements the other.
very
Research
true.
even says that people begin with personal, then move to online, or vice versa. How can we take advantage of this complementation between online and offline relationship?
Ang ganda ng tanong. Thank you very much for the question. Para akong Miss Universe. Thank you very much for the question. Ito, sabi kanina, we move to, kanina yun, di ba? From the offline muna, and then we move to the online. How can we take advantage? Don't remain static one. Be that in your presence in both. Don't remain static only in the online. Online lang ako ngayon, online lang. I only stay in the online now that I forgot already the offline. It's true that we can go from one to the other. We should not remain only in one stage, online lang, or else traditional lang. There's a constant, nasasabi natin, traveling of a person to both, that both actually you should be in both. Okay. The two is 50-50, masasabi natin. 50-50 yan. 50-50. We should be in both. Ayun lang siguro yung simple answer ko doon. If you remain only in one, it will not be successful. Kung online ka lang, no. At least the one that is significant, it needs to express itself in something that is concrete. Yun pa rin. I think I will go for that. Never be stuck. If you stuck, you die. Or if you stuck, you lose your meaning. You lose your identity if you just be stuck.
Okay.
Thank you, sister.
Okay, thank you, Father. Another question here. Is virtual encounter good as face-to-face encounter?
Sister, I would answer, for me, it is. I will define good muna. What is good? Good, actually, you can be made into different perspective, parang religious. What is good for you is not good for me. This is what Christ said, that it is good. But the other one says this is good. A Catholic say this is good. The other religion says this is good. So we define first what is good. Pero in your questions, I would say, ano yan, yung is as good as. Ibig sabihin yan, is it equal to? Is it equal to? Again, for me, I would say yes. I would contend it with this. When I was in Italy, the first time I ever defended my thesis, kasi my topic was actually on the social media, YouTube comments, okay? And then the priest professor from the Salesian University, yung dean, was saying to me, no, he said, your thesis cannot go because it's actually virtual. Virtual is not real, sabi niya sa akin. Virtual is not real. Nung patay, the priest was a bit elderly already. He said, virtual. Virtual. Sabi niya, for a thesis in a Catholic institution, you are doing YouTube, actually, because my topic was tragedy and religious identity in social media. A case analysis of the YouTube September 11 bombing. Okay, yung mga ganun eh. Sabi niya, no, that cannot go kasi you're analyzing comments. That is not real. That's not real. And then afterwards, I thought about it. And then I said to him, Father, with all due respects, here in Rome, we have actually 50,000 Filipinos now who have left in the Philippines, who have not been home some for 3 years. And then I told him, how do they communicate with their families? With cell phone, Father. They see the cell phones, they see their families, dati kasi very, very prevalent pa is Skype. They see their newborn child in Skype and the faces of the wife on Skype. Can you tell me that is not real, Father? Can you tell me that that is not real? The face of the child, which afterwards, after seeing the child, what did the father do? Actually, the father really smiled. Oh, gaganin ko na yung, gaganin pa niya yung bata eh. Can you tell me that that is not real? And then he told me afterwards, yes, I am mistaken. The virtual is also real. Yun lang, to say that. Especially for us, yung overseas, parang overseas worker nun, tagal ko. It is real. Oo, yun eh. It becomes real.
Yes. Okay, thank you about that. Another question. You mentioned about how our use of devices can become like a mask that creates a barrier in our relationship.
Yes.
But for some, the use of digital devices is something they can do without. The cell phone, for example, has become a part of their being.
Yes.
So, what can you say about this?
Siguro for me, he is right. Actually, it can become. It can become actually in terms of that. Diba, it's actually personal too. It can become a mask, but for some really, it can become a source of identity. That is very true. It's actually both ways. Unmasking means, ito yung sana sa akin eh. Unmasking means, or masking means actually identity. It becomes a mask that covers your identity. Like the mask. What does the mask do? It protects our identity so we could live. That is positive. This one, like people that you said, with this, they find meaning. That is true too. That's where they get their significance. That's for them. But for other people too, it's different. For them, they do not like this and they can also live. That is also true. Again, it's actually different perspectives where you actually could play more in both of them. So both of them is right. It's just seeing two things, seeing significance in both of them is our invitation. How to find significance. How to find even actually yung I keep on telling my students, and this is actually very true in terms of communication and mission. Ang sabi ko sa kanila, your mission, our mission, I believe now, is not to only tell people, not to tell people, okay, this is about God, this is about, okay, that is, not to tell the people what is in the book. Our greatest mission of today is actually how to help people, make sense of what is happening around them. How they can interpret the death of a family, how they can interpret, for example, the floods, how they can interpret that someone robbed them, that how they can interpret that someone raped their daughter. You make sense of it. That is our role. That is actually our role. Making sense of what people experience in life, communicate it. You have created a true encounter. You do not create a true encounter just by telling, read John 17. It might work, okay. But for people who grieve, oftentimes too, who is not a Bible user, who are not a Bible user, I think that can be who is not a Bible user. I think for us that is actually difficult. So for us, really, it's really making sense, and and this is what is nice, because this has been a good a discussion we had the other night when we were doing the communication seminar on the online. They were saying, Father, yeah, okay, Father, my duty now is to actually make sense of make sense to people, make sense what I want to say to people. And then I just mentioned there is something wrong in that. It is not your sense that should make sense to people. You should make sense of what is happening to them, not what is happening to you. That is the mission, is the religious. That is our call. For us religious, that is what we are called to communicate, not our sense, but also the sense of what's happening to people. Siguro doon lang muna ko.
Yes. Thank you, Father. Okay, one more question.
Meron pa. Sige po.
Meron pa, Father. Okay, it seems that the distorters among us are quite organized, like a crime syndicate. How can the procedures of informed conversations among us to be organized?
Sister, pakiulit, please. Pakiulit nga, please.
It seems that the distorters among us are quite organized, like a crime syndicate. How can the crusaders of informed conversations among us be as organized?
Organization.
So, any suggestions?
Sige, ang ganda ng mga words niya. Number one, he said, it seems. So, it may be true, it may be not true. Okay, sabi niya. Tapos ginamit niya yung crusaders. The word of the crusaders. Mga 9th, 12th century yan. Ibig sabihin yung mga kalaban.
I think it's about, the misinformation that we usually get, from the social media. Distorters of the truth.
Ayan. Totoo yun, sister.
So they are very nice, Father. So what can we do on our part to combat that? To, to talk about the truth.
Ayan, very good. So you've used the word, sister, you used the word naman, combat. Parang this Sanchu, sasabihin ko lang kay Sanchu, kasi Sanchu has always said, yung Sanchu, yung kanyang The Art of War, anyway, if we look at things if you look at things that happening now, pati yung mga ganitong mga organized or not organized, mga crusaders, therefore you actually look at things as, you always treat them as enemies. Okay, yun din. They're born with suspicion. You look at them as enemies. Pero how did Sanchu, Sanchu principle ako muna. Sanchu, ang ganda kasi sister, sabi niya Sanchu principle is, okay, you should study the strategies. I think number one, I think that we could do. You should study the strategies of the enemy. Number one, to be able to defeat them. Study their strategy. Pero yung number two, and sabi ni Sanchu, parang wonderfully perplexing. Ang sagot niya, number one, study the strategy. Number two that he said was, look inside of you because the weapon is already inside of you. The weapon to defeat the enemy is actually there to defeat you, to actually to help you. What does it mean? Our weapon, sister, is sa akin, yung you should not, although wrong yung talagang ginagawa nila, yung weapons of evil and not truth. Oo. Pero ganun din, sister, will you ignite it with more, yung sa akin will you ignite it with more sort of negativities? Hindi maganda yung ginagawa nyo, therefore you are feeding. Pero hindi rin naman tama na sasabihin nyo, oh, okay, that is actually true. That is actually true. Ni Bishop is about truth. Tell them, actually, it's not only tell them what is true, show them what is true. And how do you do that? The way you live in your families. Doon pa rin ako babalik That truth, that weapon starts in us. It doesn't the things you do outside of you muna. It starts with the things in sa akin. It starts with the things that you do inside your home that can influence your family members. Who afterwards can influence other people. Who afterwards can influence other people. Connections na yun. It starts from
yes,
us.
Father,
Sa akin Do not fight from yung fight mo agad, nasa labas ka agad Sige, labas tayo. Lalaban natin yan. Hindi I always believe the discernment that the bishop was saying, and that's the truth, is actually start from within. That discernment starts from within. What good is it in me that I could share to my family members now that I actually could help them be inspired despite the negative things around? What can I communicate with them? Ako yun sa akin, sister. Yun talagang number one.
Yeah, in other words, we have to be witnesses ourselves.
Yan po, sa akin. Yan.
Witnesses of Jesus.
Yan po.
Okay, so thank you very much, Father. Thank you so
po,
much
sister.
for your inspiring insights, for your sharing, and for the, challenging talk that you have given us. We have learned so much. Thank you so much, Father.
Thank you po.